From the Ellie Long Music Center in Colchester, Vermont PBS is pleased to bring you the 13th annual Poetry Out Loud Vermont State Finals.
Good evening. I'm Holly Groschner, President and CEO of Vermont PBS. I want to welcome everyone to tonight's exciting Poetry Out Loud Finals here at the beautiful Ellie Long Music Center. Many thanks to Rosino Cannizzaro, Executive Director of the Vermont Youth Orchestra, for hosting us. And I'm excited to welcome our special guest, Justine Hacka, who is here from Chicago for tonight's performance. She is with the Poetry Foundation, and together with the National Endowment for the Arts, they make programs like this possible across the country. Welcome to Vermont, Justine, and thanks for coming. And I'm in awe of these 9 finalists, indeed. Through their passion, which they brought here to Colchester tonight, they are going to make a spectacular program for us. Through their hard work, the finalists mastered and publicly recited poems in their school classrooms, then in a statewide competition, a school-wide competition, and finally at the semifinals in Barrie. To our finalists and all of the participating students, their teachers, their counselors, administrators, and of course, their parents, our heartfelt thanks and congratulations from Vermont PBS. I'm especially delighted to welcome Karin Mittleman, the new Executive Director of the Vermont Arts Council, to this 5th broadcast competition. Karin, Vermont is lucky that you chose us. Thank you. A very special thanks to Troy Hickman and the entire team at the Vermont Arts Council. You have done an excellent job at making this event possible. Now, a special thanks also to our cellist, Sonny Lewis, member of the Vermont Youth Orchestra, who will be performing later in the program. The power of poetry performed out loud is amazing. Thank you to these contestants for sharing their performance and reminding us of the power of high school students everywhere. At this time, it's my pleasure to turn the podium over to our MC, the on-air voice of Vermont PBS and teacher at Rice Memorial High School, Rob Brown. Rob? Take this out of your way.
Okay, thanks. Well, thank you, Holly. A pleasure as always. On behalf of the Vermont Arts Council, the National Foundation for the Arts, and the Poetry Foundation, welcome to the 13th Annual Poetry Out Loud State Finals, coming to you this year from the Ellie Long Music Center and hosted by the Vermont Youth Orchestra Association. Poetry is a criticism of life, said Matthew Arnold. Poets are priests of the invisible, said Wallace Stevens. Poetry is when we want to remember the words and say them over and over again. And that's the essence of Poetry Out Loud. Tonight, 9 high school students from across the state will bring us poetry, the most beautiful, most impressive, most widely effective mode of saying things that matter. Poetry Out Loud is a national competition. It encourages students in grades 9 through 12 to explore great poetry through memorization and recitation. The finalists in tonight's competition have been chosen from more than 5,200 Vermont students in more than 40 high schools, from Derby Line to Dummerston, from Brandon to Bradford. The winner tonight will go on to represent the state of Vermont in the national competition in Washington, D.C. for up to $20,000 in prize money. Our state champion will receive a $200 award and an all-expense-paid trip for 2 to the finals in Washington. And the champion's school library will also receive a prize, $500 for the purpose of purchasing poetry books and related materials. Tonight's second place finalist will receive a $100 prize and $200 will go to their school library. So there's a lot on the table tonight. Now there are 3 rounds in tonight's competition. All 9 contestants are prepared to recite in all 3 rounds. However, only the 3 top scoring students will recite their 3rd poem in round 3 to determine who will represent Vermont at the National Poetry Out Loud competition. Our recitations are scored in 5 distinct categories tonight. First is physical presence. Second, voice and articulation. Third, dramatic appropriateness. Fourth, level of understanding. And fifth, overall performance. Each student is also scored on accuracy, ensuring that every line of every word is faithfully represented. Applying these criteria tonight, our panel of judges. Let's meet them now. Emily Bernard is a professor of English and Critical Race and Ethnic Studies. She received Vermont Arts Council Creation Grant in 2013 for her upcoming Black is the Body, which will be published by Alfred Knopf in 2019. Chard Denord, he's the Poet Laureate of Vermont, author of 6 books of poetry, and his new book of interviews titled I Would Lie to You If I Could is due out this spring from University Press. He's professor of English and creative writing at Providence College. Jarvis Green is the founding producing artistic director of JAG Productions and the recipient of the 2017 New England Theater Conference's Regional Award for Outstanding Achievement in American Theater. John Kalaki is the executive director of the Flynn Center for the Performing Arts in Burlington. He's written numerous publications for the arts and written and directed several award-winning short films and videos. And finally, Rick Agron is the accuracy judge. He's a poet and humanities instructor at Johnson State College. He hosts Bon Mot, a weekly literary arts program on Goddard College Community Radio. He also teaches digital community storytelling through the Indie Kingdom Youth Radio. Tabulating the scores from the Vermont Arts Council, Meredith Bell and Sarah Mutrix. And that's the cast of characters for the officiating of Poetry Out Loud. It's time to begin round 1 of the Poetry Out Loud 2018 Vermont State Finals in a randomly chosen order. First up is Kaitlin Mcdermott from Vermont Academy.
Propositions by Stephen Dunn. Anyone who begins a sentence with, "in all honesty," is about to tell a lie. Anyone who says, "this is how I feel," had better love form more than disclosure. Same for anyone who thinks he thinks well because he had a thought. If you say, "you're ugly," to an ugly person, no credit for honesty, which must always be a discovery, an act that qualifies as an achievement. If you persist, you're just a cruel bastard. A pig without a mirror, somebody who hasn't examined himself enough. A hesitation hints at an attempt to be honest, suggests a difficulty is present. A good sentence needs a clause or two, interruptions set off by commas, evidence of a slowing down, a rethinking. Before I asked my wife to marry me, I told her I'd never be fully honest. No one, she said, had ever said that to her. I was trying to be radically honest, I said, but in fact had another motive. A claim without a but in it is at best only half true. In all honesty, I was asking, in advance, to be forgiven.
Vera Escajais from South Burlington High School.
Spanglish by Tato Laviera. Pues estoy creando Spanglish, bicultural systems, scientific, lexicographical, intertextual integrations, 2 expressions existentially wired, 2 dominant languages continentally abrazándose en las aceras del soil. Imperio Spanglish emerges. Control, bandiaje. Sobre territorio, bilingual. Las novelas mexicanas mixing with radio rock and roll, condimented cocinador, immigrant, migrant, nasal mispronouncements, baraja, Chismeteos, social club, hip-hop, prieto, street salsa, corner soul, and mixturando Spanish pop farandula. Standard English classrooms with computer technicalities. Spanglish is literally perfect. Spanglish is ethnically snobbish. Spanglish is cara holy inteligencia. Which U.S. slang do you speak?
Now, here's Linnea Kay from Woodstock Union High School.
To Have Without Holding by Marge Piercy. Learning to love differently is hard. Love with the hands wide open, love with the doors banging on their hinges, the cupboard unlocked, the wind roaring and whimpering in the rooms, rustling the sheets and snapping the blinds that thwack like rubber bands in an open palm. It hurts to love wide open, stretching the muscles that feel as if they are made of wet plaster, then of blunt knives, then of sharp knives. It hurts to thwart the reflexes of grab, of clutch, to love and let go, again and again. It pesters to remember the lover who is not in the bed, to hold back what is owed to the work that gutters like a candle in a cave without air, to love consciously, conscientiously, concretely, constructively. I can't do it. You say it's killing me, but you thrive. You glow on the street like a neon raspberry. You float and sail, a helium balloon, bright bachelor's button blue and bobbing on the cold and hot winds of our breath, as we make and unmake, in passionate diastole and systole, the rhythm of our unbound bonding, to have and not to hold, to love with minimized malice, hunger and anger, moment by moment, balanced.
Now, here's Chloe Lyons from Mount Abraham Union High School.
Peach by Jennifer Tong. Come, here's a peach, he said, and held it out just far enough to reach beyond his lap and offered me a room. The one room left, he said. In all of Thessaloniki that night, packed with traders. The peach was lush. I hadn't slept for days. It was like velvet lips, a lamp. He smiled, patted the bed for me. I knew it was, in fact, the only room, the only bed. The peach trembled, and he said, come, nodding to make me agree. I wanted the peach and the bed. He said to take it, see how nice it was, and I thought how I could take it gingerly, my fingertips only touching only it. Not in or out, I stayed in the doorway, watching a fly. He stroked the peach and asked where I was from. I said, the States. He smiled and asked how long I'd stay. The fly had found the peach. I said, I'd leave for Turkey in the morning. I wanted so much to sleep, and on a bed. I thought of all the ways to say those words and that they must have gradient meanings. He asked me, did I want the peach? And I said sure, and took it from his hand. He asked then if I'd take the room. It costs too much, I said in turn to go. He said to stay a while and we could talk. The sun was going down. I said, no thanks. I'd head on out on the late train, but could I still have the peach? And what else could he say to that? But yes.
Next, here's Gracie Smith from Arlington Memorial High School.
The Gaff by C.K. Williams. 1. If that someone who's me, yet not me, yet who judges me, is always with me as he is, shouldn't he have been there when I said so long ago that thing I said? If he who rakes me with such not trivial shame for minor sins now were there then, shouldn't he have warned me he'd even now devastate me for my unpardonable affront? I'm a child then, yet I've already composed this conscience beast who harries me. Is there anything else I can say with certainty about who I was, except that he could already draw from infinitesimal transgressions complex chords of remorse, and orchestrate ever undiminishing retribution from the hapless rest of myself? 2. The son of some friends of my parents has died, and my parents, paying their call, take me along, and I'm sent out with the dead boy's brother and some others to play. We're joking around, and some words come to my mind, which to my amazement are said. How do you know when you can laugh when somebody dies? Your brother dies, is what's said, and the others go quiet. The backyard goes quiet. Everyone stares. And I want to know now whether that someone in me who's me let me say it. Shouldn't he have warned me the contrition cycle would from then be ever upon me? It didn't matter that I'd really only wanted to know how grief ends and when. 3. I could hear the boy's mother sobbing inside, then stopping, sobbing, then stopping. Was the end of her grief already there? Had her someone in her told her it would end? Was her someone in her kinder to her, not tearing at her as mine did, still does me, for guessing grief someday ends? Is that why her sobbing stops sometimes? She didn't laugh, though. Or I never heard her. How do you know when you can laugh? Why couldn't someone have been there in me, not just to accuse me, but to explain? The kids were playing again. I was playing. I didn't hear anything more from inside. The way now sometimes what's in me is silent too, and sometimes, though never really, forgets.
Now here's Aliyah Burr from Burlington High School.
The Lamb by Linda Gregg. It was a picture I had after the war, a bombed English church. I was too young to know the word English or war, but I knew the picture. The ruined city still seemed noble. The cathedral, with its roof blown off, was not less godly. The church was the same, plus rain and sky. Birds flew in and out of the holes God's fist made in the walls. All our desire for love or children is treated like rags by the enemy. I knew so much and sang anyway. Like a bird who will sing until it is brought down. When they take away the trees, the child picks up a stick and says, "This is the tree, this, the house, and the family." As we might. Through a door of what had been a house, into the field of rubble walks a single lamb, tilting its head, curious, unafraid, hungry.
Next, here's Annie Keith from People's Academy.
Bleeding Heart by Carmen Jimenez Smith. My heart is bleeding. It bleeds upward and fills my mouth up with salt. It bleeds because of a city in ruins. The chair still warm for my sister's body, because it will all be irreproducible. My heart bleeds because a baby bear not finding Mama Bear, and it bleeds to the tips of my fingers like I painted my nails crimson. Sometimes it bleeds so much, I am a raisin. It bleeds until I'm a quivering, ragged clot. Bleeds at the ending with the heroine and her sunken cancer eyes. At the ending with the plaintive flute over smoke-choked killing fields. I'm bleeding a river of blood right now, and it's wearing a culvert in me for the blood. My heart rises up in me, becomes the cork of me, and I choke on it. I'm bleeding for you and for me and for the tiny babies and the IED blown leg. It bleeds because I'm made that way. All filled up with blood. My sloppy heart, a sponge filled with the blood to squeeze onto any circumstance. Because it is mine, it will always bleed. My heart bled today. It bled on the streets and the steps of City Hall. It bled in the pizza parlor with the useless jukebox. I've got so much blood to give, inside and outside of any milieu. Even for a bad zoning decision, I'll bleed so much. You'll be bleeding. All of us bleeding in and out, like it's breathing or kissing. And because it's righteous and terrible and red.
Next, here's Elise Caruso Randall from Bellows Free Academy in Fairfax.
Monet Refuses the Operation by Liesl Mueller. Doctor, you say there are no halos around the streetlights in Paris, and what I see is an aberration caused by old age, an affliction. I tell you, it has taken me all my life to arrive at the vision of gas lamps as angels, to soften and blur and finally banish the edges you regret I don't see, to learn that the line I called the horizon does not exist, and sky and water so long apart are the same state of being. 54 years before I could see Rouen Cathedral is built of parallel shafts of sun, and now you want to restore my youthful errors? Fixed notions of top and bottom, the illusion of three-dimensional space, wisteria separate from the bridge it covers? What can I say to convince you the Houses of Parliament dissolve night after night to become the fluid dream of the Thames? I will not return to a universe of objects that don't know each other, as if islands were not the lost children of one great continent. The world is flux, and light becomes what it touches, becomes water, lilies on water, above and below water, becomes lilac and mauve and yellow and white and cerulean lamps, small fists passing sunlight so quickly to one another that it would take long, streaming hair inside my brush to catch it, to paint the speed of light. Our weighted shapes, these verticals, burn to mix with air and change our bones, skin, clothes to gases. Doctor, if only you could see how heaven pulls earth into its arms, and how infinitely the heart expands to claim this world. Blue vapor without end.
Unfortunately, Sadie Chamberlain of the Linden Institute is unable to join us tonight with her presentation of Ode by Arthur O'Shaughnessy. So we'll continue with our next contestant, Olivia Pitcher from Burr and Burton Academy.
Sonnet 18, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day, by William Shakespeare. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. And every fair from fair sometime declines by chance or nature's changing course, untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
Concludes round one of Poetry Out Loud 2018 Vermont State Finals. Before we continue on to round two, we have a treat for you, which is going to materialize on the stage momentarily. Since we're in the home of the Vermont Youth Orchestra, it seems only fitting that we present you with a little bit of music. Our thanks to Zani Lewis, cellist with the Vermont Youth Orchestra, and a wonderful performance there of the cello prelude, Suite Number 3 in C major by Johann Sebastian Bach. Thank you, Zani. And now, it's time to get on to round 2 of Poetry Out Loud. Here again, Kaitlin McDonald from Vermont Academy.
Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Now here again, Vera Escajais from South Burlington High School.
I Remember by Thomas Hood. I remember the house where I was born, the little window where the sun came peeping in at morn. He never came a wink too soon, nor brought too long a day. But now I often wish the night had borne my breath away. I remember the roses, red and white, the violets and the lily cups, those flowers made of light, the lilacs where the robin built, and where my brother sat. The laburnum on his birthday, the tree is living yet. I remember where I was used to swing, and thought the air must rush as fresh to swallows on the wing. My spirit flew in feathers then. That is so heavy now. And summer pools could hardly cool the fever On my brow, I remember. The fir trees, dark and high. I used to think their slender tops were close against the sky. It was a childish ignorance. But now, 'tis little joy to know I'm farther off from heaven than when I was a boy.
Now here's Linnea Kay from Woodstock Union High School.
The Current Isolationism by Camille Rankine. In the half-light, I am most at home, my shadow is company. When I feel hot, I push a button to make it stop. I mean, this stain on my mind, I can't get out. How human I seem. Like modern man, I traffic in extinction. I have a gift. Like an animal, I sustain. A flock of birds, when touched, I scatter. I won't approach until the back is turned. My heart betrays. I confess, I am afraid. How selfish of me. When there's no one here, I have the distance between our bodies infinitesimally. In this long passageway, I pose against the wallpaper, dig my heels in, catch the light. In my vision, the back door opens on a garden that is always in bloom. The dogs are chained so they can't attack like I know they want to. In the next yard over, honeybees swarm, and their sound is huge.
Now, here's Chloe Lyons from Mount Abraham Union High School.
I Am Trying to Break Your Heart by Kevin Young. I am hoping to hang your head on my wall in shame. The slightest taxidermy thrills me. Fish forever leaping on the living room walls, paperweights made from skulls of small animals. I want to wear your smile on my sleeve and break your heart like a horse or its leg, weeks of being bucked off, then all at once. You're mine. Put me down. I want to call you thine. To tattoo mercy along my knuckles. I assassin down the avenue. I hope to have you forgotten by noon, to know you by your knees palsied by prayer. Loneliness is a science. Consider the taxidermist's tender hands trying to keep from losing skin. The bobcat grin of the living.
Next, Gracie Smith from Arlington Memorial High School.
The Spirit is Too Blunt an Instrument by Anne Stevenson. The spirit is too blunt an instrument to have made this baby. Nothing so unskillful as human passions could have managed the intricate, exacting particulars. The tiny blind bones with their manipulating tendons, the knee and the knuckle bones, the resilient fine meshings of ganglia and vertebrae, the chain of the difficult spine. Observe the distinct eyelashes and sharp crescent fingernails, the shell-like complexity of the ear, concentric in miniature to minute ossicles, Imagine the infinitesimal capillaries, the flawless connections of the lungs, the invisible neural filaments through which the completed body already answers to the brain. Then name any passion or sentiment possessed of the simplest accuracy. No desire or affection could have done with practice what habit has done perfectly, indifferently, through the body's ignorant precision. It is left to the vagaries of the mind to invent love and despair and anxiety and their pain.
Next, once again, Elia Burr from Burlington High School.
The Negro Speaks of Rivers by Langston Hughes. I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers.
Now here's Annie Keith from People's Academy. Now here's Alyssa Caruso Randall from Bellows Free Academy, Fairfax.
Difference by Stephen Vincent Benet. My mind's a map. A mad sea captain drew it under a flowing moon until he knew it. Winds with brass trumpets puffy-cheeked as jugs, and states bright patterned like Arabian rugs. Here there be tigers. Here we buried Jim. Here is the strait where eyeless fishes swim about their buried idol, drowned so cold he weeps away his eyes in salt and gold. A country like the dark side of the moon, a cider apple country, harsh and boon, a country savage as a chestnut rind, a land of hungry sorcerers. Your mind? Your mind is water through an April night, a cherry branch, plume feathery with its white, a lavender as fragrant as your words, a room where peace and honor talk like birds, sowing bright coins upon the heavy cloth of tragic fate, and mockery, like a moth, flutters and beats about those lovely things. You are the soul, enchanted with its wings, the single voice that raises up the dead to shake the pride of angels. I have said.
Now once again, Olivia Pitcher from Burr and Burton Academy.
Diameter by Michelle Y. Burke. You love your friend, so you fly across the country to see her. Your friend is grieving. When you look at her, you see that something's missing. You look again. She seems all there, sarcasm, reading glasses, leather pumps. What did you expect? Ruins? Demeter without arms in the British Museum? Your friend says she believes there's more pain than beauty in the world. When Persephone was taken, Demeter damned the world for half the year. The other half remained warm and bountiful. The Greeks love symmetry. On the plane, the man next to you read a geometry book. The lesson on finding the circumference of a circle. On circumference, you can calculate the way around if you know the way across. You try across with your friend. You try around. I don't believe in an afterlife, she says. But after Kay died, I thought I might go after her. In case I'm wrong. In case she's somewhere. Waiting.
That brings us to the end of round 2. And while our team of tabulators compile each contestant's score to determine which 3 will advance to the final round, I'd like to take a moment now to introduce Karin Mittleman, the new Executive Director of the Vermont Arts Council. Welcome, Karin.
Thank you, Rob. And thank you to Holly and to Vermont PBS for hosting us in this beautiful space tonight. Most of all, I want to thank the students whose passion and dedication brought us here. It may be hard for you to enjoy this evening because all you're feeling is your heart hammering and those butterflies in your stomach. But I really want to say something to you. I want you to know that you've given us all a gift here today. By bringing us together, students, parents, teachers, friends, judges, you've convened us as a temporary community for a few hours to hear your stories, to hear the words that spoke to you. Words written by someone else, perhaps in another time and place, perhaps remote from our own, that reached out somehow and grabbed you the way art reaches out and grabs us and compels us to share. That process of recitation, which is as old as storytelling, creates community more powerfully than anything that I know. James Baldwin once said that when he was a young man, he felt he was alone, and then he started to read. The exact quote is this. It's a quote I find myself returning to again and again. You think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read. It was Dostoevsky and Dickens who taught me that the things that tormented me the most were the very things that connected me with all the people who were alive and all the people who ever had been alive. I suspect and I hope that at some point in your preparation for Poetry Out Loud, in the weeks when you were memorizing your poems and then digging deeper and reading them again and again and committing those lines to heart, that each of you had moments when you felt what Baldwin describes, when you felt that incredible deep recognition of your own aliveness in someone else's words. Each of you brought that on stage tonight very powerfully with eloquence and courage. Please know that we're grateful for that, and that we're grateful for the reminder of all the ways that art can bind us together and create community. It's one of the many, many reasons that we all need art in our lives. So on behalf of the Vermont Arts Council, I'm happy to be here tonight, and on behalf of all of us who are assembled here as your temporary community, thank you.
Well, thank you, Karin. At this point, we'd like to present each of our finalists with a certificate of achievement for this year's Poetry Out Loud competition. And silly name. Yeah. First, Kaitlin Mcdermott. Vera Iskaha Heiss. Linnea Kay. Chloe Lyons. Gracie Smith. Aliyah Burr. Annie Keith. Elise Caruso Randall. And Olivia Pitcher. Let's give these contestants one more round of collective thunderous applause. Thank you all for your hard work. Congratulations for your achievements as Vermont State finalists, and a shout out as well to your teachers, coaches, and let's not forget Mom and Dad, your parents as well. And with that, I'll invite you to take your seats again, and we will learn which three contestants will recite one more poem in the final round, round 3. The scores from the first and second rounds were tabulated, and the 3 highest scoring contestants now are going to recite a final poem. The scores they earn in this round will be added to their current totals, and that's how we get a Vermont State champion. Our contestants in round 3 in alphabetical, no, not in alphabetical order, in random order. Vera Iskaha Heiss, Elise Caruso Randall, and Aliyah Burr. Ready for a little more poetry? Let's bring it. First, Vera Iskaha Heiss.
I'm Learning to Abandon the World by Linda Paston. I am learning to abandon the world before it can abandon me. Already I have given up the moon and snow, closing my shades against the claims of white. And the world has taken my father, my friends. I have given up melodic lines of hills moving to a flat, tuneless landscape, and every night I give my body up, limb by limb, working upwards across bone towards the heart. But morning comes with small reprieves of coffee and bird song. A tree outside the window, which was simply shadow moments ago, takes back its branches, twig by leafy twig. And as I take my body back, the sun lays its warm muzzle on my lap, as if to make amends. Thank you.
Now, Elise Caruso Randall from Bellows Free Academy, Fairfax. Now, Elia Burr from Burlington High School.
In the Desert by Stephen Crane. In the desert, I saw a creature, naked, bestial, who squatting upon the ground held his heart in his hands and ate of it. I said, "Is it good, friend?" "It is bitter, bitter," he answered. "But I like it, because it is bitter, and because it is my heart."
Having worked with Poetry Out Loud for many years in my own classroom at Rice Memorial High School and through the Vermont Arts Council and the Poetry Out Loud competition every year, this has been a marvelous, marvelous evening. And now I am pleased to announce our winners. First, the 2018 Vermont Poetry Out Loud runner-up is Elise Caruso Randall. And now we need a little more help from Chard Denord, Vermont's Poet Laureate. We have so few opportunities to recognize poet laureacy in Vermont, and we'll take that right here. Thank you, Chard. Thank you for great work as a judge, and thank you for joining us. Our 2018 Vermont State Champion, Vera Escaja Heiss from South Burlington High School. Congratulations. Congratulations, and thanks to everyone who contributed to this successful evening of poetry in this year's Poetry Out Loud competition. Teachers, students, coaches, parents, volunteers, judges, those organizations that partnered with the Vermont Arts Council to bring the program to our students throughout the state. The Poetry Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Vermont Youth Orchestra, our hosts for the evening, and of course, Vermont PBS. Registration for the 2019, next year's Vermont Poetry Out Loud recitation contest opens soon. Schools that teach students in grades 9 through 12 are encouraged to visit the Vermont Arts Council website at vermontartscouncil.org for more information. Once again, congratulations to all of our contestants. Thank you and good night.